The dawn broke with a haunting silence in the remote village, where the wind once carried songs of hope. Now, it whispered, only loss. Among the thatched rooftops and dew-covered fields walked Sora, a boy of 16, haunted by absence. He clutched an old tattered scarf, his mother's last memory, while his gaze lingered on the empty horizon. The villagers avoided his eyes, their faces drawn, each bearing burdens of their own. The world felt smaller, colder, stripped of laughter. Sora's chest ached with the weight of longing, the sharp ache of something precious forever gone. He remembered his mother's words, soft as a lullaby, "When the wind changes, so does your fate." But now the wind was only a ghost, echoing through the hollow spaces of his heart. In the hush of early light, Sora's journey began, not with hope, but with a question. He whispered to the wind, "Will I ever find what I've lost?" The silence that answered was deeper than before, stirring the first ripple of awakening in his soul. As Sora left the boundary of his village, the world seemed both infinite and impossibly small. Every step was heavy with memory, each sound sharpened by grief. The wind, once his mother's gentle lullaby, now carried only whispers of uncertainty. Sora paused at an ancient stone archway marking the village's end, fingers tracing grooves carved by countless hands before him. The path ahead disappeared into the shadow of towering pines. Sora remembered his mother's smile, the way her laughter filled their home. But all that remained was the scarf, clinging to him like a promise and a curse. He murmured, "I will find you wherever the wind leads." The silence deepened, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves. Sora drew a shaky breath, steeling himself. This was more than a journey beyond his village. It was a crossing from innocence into the unknown, where sorrow and hope would war for his heart with every step. Stepping through the archway, Sora entered the forest, where shadows danced and the air was thick with the scent of pine needles and old earth. His heart raced, a mixture of fear and anticipation, each sound amplified in the hush of morning. Birds startled from the undergrowth, wings flashing. Sora recalled his mother's stories of the lost world beyond, a place where truth could be found in silence. He pressed on, the scarf fluttering at his side, a tether to what was lost. Every tree felt like a sentinel, every branch a memory waiting to be stirred. He whispered, "I'm not afraid." Yet, the echo that returned was hollow, betraying his trembling resolve. The further he walked, the more the forest pressed in, both a sanctuary and a labyrinth. Here, the boundaries between the past and the possible grew thin, and Sora realized this journey would ask more of him than I'd ever given. As the forest thickened, Sora stumbled upon a clearing bathed in pale light. The air was hushed, broken only by the soft, ceaseless whisper of the wind. In the center stood a lone cherry tree, blossoms fluttering in the breeze despite the season's end. Sora approached, his heart pounding, a memory surfacing of his mother telling him, "The cherry tree knows when to let go." The sight struck him, petals falling, drifting to earth, surrendering to the inevitable. He stood beneath the tree, eyes fixed on its fragile beauty, and felt his loss anew. For a moment he let himself weep, silent tears tracking down his cheeks, grief finding a rare voice. The wind circled him, cold and insistent, as if urging him onward. "I miss you," Sora whispered, hoping the tree would carry his words to wherever his mother waited. Beyond the clearing, the forest darkened. Sora pressed forward, guided only by instinct and the fragile hope that something awaited him ahead. Roots snagged at his feet. Thorny branches scratched his arms. With each step, the memory of his mother grew sharper, but so did the pain of her absence. The wind grew louder, swirling around him, its voice rising in a haunting lament. Sora paused, breath ragged, and shouted into the shadows, "What do you want from me?" The echo seemed to answer with a question of its own, carrying his words deep into the forest's heart. For the first time, Sora felt the boundary between himself and the world begin to blur, as if his grief, his longing, and the whispering wind were all parts of the same song. In that moment, the true nature of his journey revealed itself, not to reclaim what was lost, but to discover what it means to let go. The forest thinned, and Sora emerged beside a swift, clear river. The water's song was wild, inviting, but Sora's heart throbbed with unease. Hunger gnawed at him, and his thoughts turned to the simple pleasures of his old life: warm bread, laughter, his mother's gentle hand. He knelt at the river's edge, staring at his reflection, a boy changed by sorrow, face pale, eyes hollowed by longing. "Why do I feel so empty?" he murmured. The wind caught his voice, scattering it across the ripples. Memories pressed in. His mother serving rice, the warmth of their fire. Now, even the river's bounty seemed beyond his reach. Sora watched fish dart by, but had no will to catch them. His desires tangled within him, each one a painful reminder of what he'd lost. Still, he dipped his hands into the icy water, seeking comfort in its flow, even as the ache inside him deepened. Sora wandered onward, hunger sharpening his senses and his regrets. The woods opened onto a bustling roadside market, an impossible oasis in the wild. Merchants shouted, aromas of spices and grilled meat drifting on the air, colorful cloths waving like banners. Sora's heart twisted. He had no coin, and the joy of others only sharpened his ache. Children played, laughter bright and free, while he hovered at the market's edge, an outsider. A kindly old woman beckoned, offering him a sweet rice cake. Sora hesitated, pride and need at war. The woman smiled gently and said, "Kindness is a seed, child, let it root." He took the cake, bowing low, and for a heartbeat, warmth blossomed within him. Yet even kindness stung, reminding him of all he yearned for but could not keep. As he tasted the rice cake, sweetness filled Sora's mouth, mingling with a sudden rush of tears. For a moment, memories overwhelmed him, his mother laughing in their tiny kitchen, her hands guiding his, her voice soothing. The taste brought both comfort and pain, desire and loss colliding inside him. Around him, the market faded, replaced by a vision of home, then dissolving like mist. Sora's hunger was not just for food but for acceptance, belonging, the warmth of another's touch. He wiped his tears quickly, ashamed. The old woman watched him with understanding. "The world offers much," she said, "but what will you choose to carry?" Sora turned away, the gift of kindness and the ache of yearning both heavy in his heart. Leaving the market behind, Sora wandered a winding path into the woods, the weight of longing pressing on his shoulders. He stumbled upon a shrine. Small, weathered stone hidden among wildflowers, incense smoke curling into the sky. Drawn forward, Sora knelt and offered the last crumbs of rice cake, whispering a prayer for his mother's peace and his own release from craving. The air shifted. A gentle wind swept through the clearing, making the incense dance. Sora bowed low, feeling the ache inside him shift, just a little. He rose lighter, but with a new question. What if the true path was not about filling emptiness, but learning to honor it? As he left the shrine, the wind whispered again, carrying the scent of incense and the faintest echo of his mother's voice. The path wound deeper into forest shadows, hunger easing but desire still alive within Sora. He walked until sunset painted the sky gold and crimson. Birds quieted, only the wind kept him company, rustling leaves with secrets he could almost understand. Sora stopped beside a fallen log and watched the last sunlight flicker through the trees. He pressed the scarf to his lips, whispering, "I will not let longing rule me." The air felt different, lighter, clearer. A moment of stillness settled, and Sora realized the ache would never vanish, but perhaps he could learn to live with it, to let it become part of the song the wind carried. As darkness fell, Sora rose, steadier than before, his heart just a little less burdened, and stepped into the waiting night. The night grew dense and full of memory as Sora wandered under a canopy of ancient trees, moonlight spilling through the branches in broken, trembling patterns. He walked until the forest opened to a familiar place. The ruins of an old house, stone foundation laced with moss and wild violets. Sora's heart pounded. He recognized the chimney, the shape of the door. This was where he and his mother once lived, before it was claimed by fire. The ache in his chest sharpened. He stepped inside the ruins, feet crunching on fallen leaves, the wind whispering secrets through cracks in the stone. He saw flashes of his childhood, laughter echoing, the scent of wood smoke, his mother's embrace. Sora knelt, touching a blackened beam, voice barely audible as he murmured, "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." Grief, sharp and raw, mingled with love in the silent ruin. Here, the past was alive, and Sora could not look away. Sora sat among the ruins as the wind picked up, swirling ash and memory around him. He closed his eyes and for a moment was a small boy again, laughing, safe in his mother's arms as she told stories by firelight. The crackle of the old hearth echoed in his mind, but the warmth vanished in a blink, replaced by the terrible heat and roar of the fire that took their home. Sora's hands clenched. He relived that night, the panic, his mother's shouts, the way the smoke closed in. "Forgive me," he whispered, voice raw, "for surviving when you did not." The wind grew fierce, howling through broken walls, and Sora felt his pain swell to the surface, raw and unavoidable. In the grip of memory, he saw not just loss, but his own guilt, carried all these years like a secret wound. Dawn crept in slowly, the sky shifting from indigo to pale gold, as Sora searched through the ruins. Among scattered stones he found an old scorched locket. Inside, a faded image of his mother smiling, armor around a younger Sora. His fingers trembled as he opened it, breath catching in his throat. A wave of longing crashed over him. He pressed the locket to his heart, eyes fixed on the gentle curve of his mother's smile. "You were always stronger than I knew," Sora whispered, "and I am still lost." The wind softened, carrying the faintest trace of lilac, a scent he remembered from childhood. Sora realized that holding on to grief had shaped him, but that his mother's love endured in memory, guiding him even now. The pain did not fade, but it became gentler, like the wind that moved through the ruins, steady and constant. Sora wandered from the ruins into a sunlit meadow, eyes red but gaze more steady. He followed the wind, drawn by a memory, his mother's voice, teaching him to listen to the world's quiet music. He closed his eyes and let every sound fill him, bird song, grass swaying, distant water. Slowly, his heartbeat calmed. The pain of loss was sharp, but so was the realization that life continued, beauty persisting through sorrow. He opened his eyes and saw the meadow alive with butterflies, the world pulsing with color and fragile joy. Sora smiled, the gesture hesitant but real. "You are here," he whispered to the wind, "in all these things." For the first time, gratitude glimmered within the ache, and Sora sensed he was not wholly alone, his mother's love and the world's kindness quietly enduring. At the meadow's edge, Sora paused beneath an ancient willow tree, its branches trailing like curtains. He knelt in the shade and took out the locket, holding it up to the light. "Mother, I carry you in my heart. I can't change what's gone, but I promise to remember your kindness." The wind stirred the willow leaves, and sunlight flickered in patterns across Sora's face. He felt the burden inside him shift again, grief and guilt loosening their grip, replaced by something lighter, almost sweet. The willow seemed to nod in silent approval. Sora rose, shoulders less bowed, and stepped from the shadow into the day. The past would always be part of him, but it would no longer define his every step. With new resolve, Sora followed the path forward, the wind a gentle guide at his side. The path led Sora into the dense heart of the forest, where sunlight barely pierced the canopy, and every step stirred ancient shadows. The air grew cold, thick with a presence he could not name. Sora's breath quickened as the trees pressed closer, the silence profound. He followed the winding track until it ended at a still, dark pond, its surface perfectly smooth, reflecting the world above with unnatural clarity. Sora knelt at the water's edge, gazing at his own face in the mirrored surface. Suddenly, the reflection shifted. His features changed, morphing into his mother's, then flickering between versions of himself. Child, youth, and stranger. "Who am I?" he whispered, voice trembling. The pond's reflection deepened, revealing memories he'd tried to forget, Moments of anger, words left unsaid, old wounds festering. Sora recoiled, heart hammering. The truth was undeniable. The suffering he carried was not just from loss, but from the parts of himself he refused to face. Sora stared into the pond, unable to turn away. The wind picked up, rustling the branches, and the surface fractured into ripples. In each fragment, he saw another memory, shameful moments, careless words, the sting of regret. The images came faster. A childhood tantrum, the sharp tone with his mother, the night he ran from her arms after a bitter quarrel. Sora clenched his fists, grief and guilt churning within. "I never said I'm sorry," he whispered. The pond shimmered, and his reflection spoke back, not in words but with the silent ache of forgiveness unspoken and wounds unhealed. Tears stung his eyes. He realized now that forgiveness could not come from the world alone. He would have to forgive himself. The trees around him seemed to lean closer, their leaves whispering secrets of release and understanding. Sora's pain deepened, but so did his resolve to confront what he had buried. A sudden wind tore through the clearing, scattering leaves across the pond. Sora staggered back, blinking as the world spun. In the chaos, he heard his mother's voice, gentle, forgiving, impossibly close. "To heal, you must see yourself with honest eyes." The wind died, and the pond stilled once more, this time revealing only Sora's true reflection, weary, tear-streaked, but unmistakably his own. Sora felt his body shudder, the force of old pain wrung out in silent sobs. For the first time he allowed himself to grieve, not just for his mother, but for the child he had been and the boy he was becoming. The burden lifted, ever so slightly, as acceptance slipped in with the quiet. Sora bowed his head, whispering, "I forgive you," to his own reflection. The world held its breath as he finally claimed his sorrow and began to let it go. The air was still again. Sora knelt and cupped water in his hands, splashing his face, feeling the cold sting and clarity. He sat back, breathing deeply, as sunlight filtered through the trees, gentle and forgiving. In this hush, Sora realized that facing his truth had not destroyed him. Instead, it revealed a core of strength, fragile but real. The past no longer controlled his every step, it simply existed, a thread in the tapestry of his story. The whispering wind was softer now, as if in approval. "I will carry your memory but not your pain," Sora said quietly, speaking to the wind, to his mother, and to himself. He rose, calmer than he had felt since the journey began. The path before him was still shadowed, but something inside him glowed with new acceptance. The forest no longer felt like a prison, but a place of possibility. Leaving the pond behind, Sora walked with steadier steps, his shadow stretching long on the sunlit path. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, felt sharper, more alive. He paused at a crossroads where two paths diverged, one winding into deeper darkness, the other curving toward light. Sora stood for a long moment, feeling the weight of choice. No longer afraid, he bowed to the darker path, honoring all he had learned, then turned toward the light. As he walked, the wind danced around him, playful and warm, lifting his scarf and stirring the wildflowers. Sora smiled, not with joy alone, but with understanding. He carried his mother's love and his own forgiveness, ready for the journey ahead. The forest opened, and sunlight welcomed him home to himself. The path Sora chose led him into a high mountain pass, where jagged rocks pierced the sky, and the wind howled with restless fury. Each step grew harder, the air thinner and colder, doubt gnawing at his resolve. Old fears returned, failure, loneliness, the voice that whispered he would never be enough. Sora's muscles burned as he climbed, his breath turning to clouds. Memories haunted him, moments when he'd clung too tightly, lashed out or retreated into silence. At a narrow ledge, he froze, paralyzed by vertigo and self-doubt. "I can't do this," he muttered, voice lost in the wind. For a long moment he stayed there, shivering. Then he remembered the pond's reflection, the honesty, the forgiveness, and forced himself to look forward. "You are not your fears," he whispered, repeating it until the words became a quiet drumbeat. With trembling hands, Sora pressed on, one deliberate step at a time, climbing toward a sky filled with swirling clouds. The climb grew steeper as Sora reached a precarious ridge. Exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, his legs trembling with every step. Stones slipped beneath his feet, sending pebbles tumbling into the abyss. Panic surged. Suddenly he saw a cairn of stacked rocks, an ancient marker left by past travelers. Sora knelt beside it, fingers tracing the smooth stones. "Others have walked this path and survived," he murmured, hope flickering. He added a new stone to the pile, breathing deeply, feeling the weight of his struggle join those who came before. The wind slowed, becoming almost gentle, as if honoring his perseverance. For the first time, Sora felt the presence of something greater than himself, a lineage of strength, suffering, and resilience. He stood, taller and steadier, the burden inside him shifting as he understood that he was never truly alone on the journey. As Sora pressed onward, a sudden storm gathered with terrifying speed. Black clouds rolled over the peaks, and cold rain lashed his face. Lightning cracked, illuminating twisted pines along the ridge. Sora stumbled, blinded by wind and fear, forced to seek shelter in a shallow cave. The darkness inside pressed close, echoing his old isolation. Heart pounding, he curled up, listening to the storm's fury. "It's only a storm," he told himself, voice barely audible. But deep inside, he felt the pull of old temptations, to give up, to hide, to turn back. Instead, Sora focused on his breath, recalling his mother's calm during fearful nights. Each inhale, each exhale became a lifeline. The storm raged outside, but slowly, Sora's shaking eased. He realized the battle was not against the wind or rain, but his own resistance. In this darkness he chose to endure, to wait for the light. When dawn broke, the storm had passed. Sora stepped from the cave into clean, golden light. The world glistened, leaves washed bright, clouds dissolving to reveal a wide blue sky. He breathed deeply, each breath cool and alive. Sora felt changed, not by the climb alone but by having faced his fears and not turned away. As he walked along the now peaceful ridge, he came upon a field of alpine flowers, blooming defiantly from the rock. He knelt among them, fingers brushing petals wet with rain. "Endurance," he whispered, "gives birth to beauty." For the first time, Sora smiled without sadness. The pain and struggle had not vanished, but transformed, woven into the joy of survival, the promise of new beginnings. The wind played gently through the flowers, carrying his mother's voice as soft encouragement. With the mountain behind him, Sora descended toward a broad sunlit valley. Each step felt lighter, his burdens lessened by struggle and acceptance. He paused at a high overlook and turned to gaze at the path he'd conquered, the scars and triumphs written in every stone. The valley below spread wide and green, threaded with rivers and villages, alive with possibility. Sora wrapped his scarf tighter, whispering, "Thank you to the wind, the mountain, and himself." He realized release was not a single act, but a process, each moment of struggle and letting go, a step toward freedom. As he started down into the valley, the sunlight warmed his back, and the wind guided him gently forward. For the first time, Sora felt truly ready for whatever waited beyond the horizon. The valley welcomed Sora with warm sunlight and a gentle breeze, wildflowers bending as if to greet him. He followed a winding path past sparkling streams and green fields, his steps steady but his mind restless. Every sight reminded him of things he still yearned for: comfort, belonging, his mother's presence. At the heart of the valley stood a quiet temple, ancient stones draped in ivy, prayer flags rippling in the wind. Sora hesitated at the entrance, overwhelmed by longing and the fear that he would never truly be whole. He bowed deeply, crossing the threshold. Inside, the air was cool, thick with incense and the murmur of chanting monks. Sora knelt, heart pounding, and whispered, "Help me let go." The words echoed in the hush. As he bowed, the weight of his journey seemed to press on him all at once, every sorrow, every hope, every memory. Yet beneath the burden was a spark of readiness to surrender. Within the temple's silent halls, golden light spilled through latticed windows, painting patterns on polished floors. Sora sat among the monks, his heart thundering with fear and hope. He listened to the rhythmic chanting, their voices rising and falling like the wind. The abbot approached, a gentle presence with eyes as deep as the earth. Without a word, the abbot pressed a cool hand to Sora's shoulder, anchoring him in the present. Tears slipped down Sora's cheeks, tears for every loss, every yearning, every regret. The chanting became a wave, washing over him, softening his grip on pain. "It is time to let go," the abbot finally whispered. Sora inhaled the incense-laden air, closed his eyes, and exhaled. In that moment he surrendered, not with defeat but with trust, allowing sorrow and longing to dissolve like mist in sunlight. After prayers, the abbot led Sora to a quiet courtyard where a single bell hung from an ancient tree. "Release your burdens here," the abbot said softly. Sora stood alone beneath the bell, the valley's wind swirling around him. He untied his scarf, feeling the thread slip through his fingers. Every fiber held memory, laughter, loss, love. Sora hesitated, tears streaming, then gently draped the scarf over the bell. With trembling hands, he struck the bell once. The sound rang clear and pure, rising above the valley, and lingering long after. As the note faded, Sora felt a lightness inside, as if a great knot had loosened. The scarf fluttered in the wind, shimmering like a prayer. In that moment, Sora understood. Surrender was not erasing the past, but freeing his heart to receive the present. As Sora lingered in the courtyard, a profound stillness filled him. The bell's echo seemed to settle in his chest, mingling with the beat of his heart. He watched his scarf sway, now a part of the temple's story. The abbot approached once more, his presence warm and unwavering. "You are ready to walk on," the abbot said, voice soft as the wind. Sora felt the truth of it in his bones. He bowed deeply, gratitude swelling inside. For the first time, his thoughts of his mother were not tangled in pain, but brightened by gratitude and love. Sora turned to leave the courtyard, the air fresh and cool. The monks' chanting drifted behind him, mingling with birdsong and the low hush of the breeze. Every sense was alive. He was open, cleansed, and ready for what waited beyond the temple walls. With a final bow to the temple and its keepers, Sora stepped beyond the threshold into the golden afternoon. The valley opened before him, lush and green, cradled by mountains and sky. He walked with unhurried steps, feeling the earth beneath his feet, the sun on his skin, and the wind's gentle caress. Each breath was free of old burdens, and his heart beat with quiet joy. Sora paused atop a low hill, turning to watch prayer flags flutter behind him, the bell's note echoing in memory. He understood now. Surrender had not left him empty, but full of love, peace, and the courage to begin again. The world sparkled with possibility, and for the first time, Sora smiled with true, unguarded happiness. The journey was not over, but the fear was gone. The wind, once a whisper of loss, now carried him forward with hope. Sora walked until the valley faded behind him, and the world opened into wide, rolling hills. The wind tugged playfully at his scarf and hair. For a while, he let himself simply wander, no destination in mind. The road was quiet, and each step brought a feeling of calm he had never known. He paused atop a hill, gazing back at the valley, its fields, its people, the home he had found and left behind. Gratitude flooded him, not only for what he had received, but for what he had learned through sorrow and struggle. Sora realized the journey was never about reaching a place, but about understanding himself and his place in the world. The wind brushed his cheek, and Sora smiled softly, present and at peace. Continuing his journey, Sora entered a quiet grove where ancient trees arched overhead, leaves whispering secrets. He sat beneath a gnarled oak and listened to the wind moving through the branches. For a long time he did nothing, just breathed, just existed. Thoughts of the past came and went, but brought no pain. Sora let himself be small in the vastness of the world, part of its endless rhythm. He realized with gentle certainty that impermanence was not something to fear, but to cherish, the source of all beauty and meaning. The wind seemed to echo this wisdom, wrapping him in comfort. In this stillness, Sora's spirit finally found rest. At midday, Sora wandered to the banks of a quiet stream. He knelt and cupped water in his hands, watching light shimmer on the surface. His own reflection looked back, not as a stranger but as a friend. The wind ruffled the water, distorting the image, reminding him that even the self was ever-changing, never fixed. Sora smiled, understanding at last. He was whole, just as he was, shaped by all he had loved and lost. He drank deeply, refreshed and renewed. For the first time, Sora felt the freedom of living fully in the present moment, guided not by longing, but by gentle acceptance. The river's song became his own. As evening fell, Sora wandered to a lone hill where the wind sang louder than ever. He stood in the last light, scarf streaming behind him, feeling the pulse of life in every breath. The journey had transformed him, and he now understood the teachings of loss and compassion. Sora raised his hands, letting the wind rush through his fingers. In that moment, he offered a silent prayer, for his mother, for all who suffer, and for himself. He knew he could not hold on to any moment, any person, any sorrow. The wind would always carry things away, but it also brought new gifts. In the hush before night, Sora found the deepest peace he had ever known. Night returned, blanketing the land in soft, silvery dark. Sora sat quietly beneath the stars, heart full but unburdened. He listened to the hush all around, the wind in the grass, distant calls of night birds, his own gentle breath. Everything changes, he thought, but love remains. Sora closed his eyes, feeling his mother's presence not as absence, but as part of the world's great stillness. In that infinite quiet he understood. The journey was never just his own. He was part of the wind, the earth, the lives he touched, and that touched him. Sora smiled, surrendering to the peace he had found, knowing he was home at last, wherever he wandered.